Hi, this is Olajide from CTF Security and welcome to day 10 of TryAcme Advent of Cyber 2023. In today's video, we'll be learning how to exploit SQL injection vulnerabilities using stacked queries. Then we will escalate our privilege to gain a remote code execution on our target. Then finally, we'll help MacRed restore the best festival website and save its reputation. So without further ado, let's get started. Hello and welcome back to today's task. And as you can see, the tagline for today is inject the AoC with exec queries. And when you go to the right corner of the screen, we have the start machine button, which I'm going to click on. And this is going to take approximately 2 to 3 minutes for this machine to fully load up. While that is coming up, as usual, we are going to use that time to go through the storyline for this task. And it goes this way. The Best Festival company started receiving many reports that their company website, bestfestival.thm, is displaying some concerning information about the state of Christmas this year. After looking into the matter, Santa's Security Operations Center confirmed that the company website has been hijacked and ultimately defaced, causing significant reputational damage. To make matters worse, the web development team has been locked out of the server as the user credentials have been changed. With no other way to revert the changes, Elf Exploits MacRed has been tasked with attempting to hack back into the server to regain access. After conducting some initial research, Elf Forensic MacBlue came across a forum post made on a popular black hat hacking internet forum, Jingle Hacks. The post made earlier in the month explained that the poster is auctioning off several active vulnerabilities related to Best Festival company systems. And now if you take a look at the image we have here, this is a screenshot from what the attacker actually posted on the platform. If you look at it critically, it happens that he is auctioning out the vulnerability that was found on the Best Festival web application. And if you take a look at the poster name, we have it as the Grid Star. And if we scroll down a bit, we have more information regarding this attack. This forum post surely explain the havoc that has gone on over the past week. Armed with this knowledge, Elf Exploits MacRed began testing the company website from the outside to find the vulnerable component that led to the server compromise. As a result of MacRed's thorough investigation, the team now suspects a possible SQL injection, which leads us to what we are going to be working on in this video. And the next section here, we have learning objective. I'm not going to go through that because I've gone through the learning objective during the introductory part of the video. So the next thing we're going to do is to deploy a virtual machine, which we've done already by clicking on the start machine button. So what next I'm going to do is to connect my local machine to the TryAcme network using OpenVPN. So to do that, I'm going to go to my workstation here. I'm going to fire up my terminal. And from the terminal, let's expand this so that we can see the screen properly. So let's list what we have. Okay, that's exited. So I'm going to open that again. Then we can enlarge once more. All right. So let's list what we have on my current directory. I have my OpenVPN folder. Let's go into that folder. From the folder, we're going to use sudo openvpn, the configuration file name, and this should connect us to the network. Okay, great. So we have the initialization sequence completed, meaning that we have successfully connected to the network. So let's go back to TryAcme. Now, the first aspect that we have here is trying to introduce us to the SQL. And basically what the SQL means is structure query language. The SQL is a domain-specific language used in programming, and it is designed for managing data held in relational database. Now, if you want to get more information regarding the relational database, Try me as properly explain what a relational database is here. And it says relational databases are structured data collections organized into tables, each consisting of various rows and columns. Within this collection, tables are interconnected with predefined relationships, facilitating efficient data organization and retrieval. So for example, here on this diagram here, we have three different tables in the relational database: the customers table, the orders table, and the product table, all interconnected with each other for proper retrieval of information or organization of information or data. Now, if you scroll down here, there are some operations we can perform within the SQL database using SQL. The first thing is we can query within the database, we can insert data into the database, we can update data into the database, and we can delete data from the database. And to illustrate this, TrackMe has created a table called table ornament. You can see the table right here. And this table contains 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows, and I beg your pardon, 7 columns and 4 rows. And each of these columns has their header. As you can see, we have the ornament ID, elf ID, color, categories, materials, date created, and price. Now on this section here, we have 4 different records for this particular table. Now, in order to illustrate the SQL query commands, we can first of all start with the select statement of the SQL. So for example, let's see how it is being used here. We have select asterisk, which actually means everything. So we are selecting all the records from table ornament, which is all the entire 4 records, where material equals to wood. Then we're going to check a condition where the materials column is equals to wood, meaning that we're going to select all the record that has the material column set to wood, which is actually 1 record here. Now, if we scroll down, you can also see how we can use the select statement in another form. So we could say select ornament ID, color, categories from the same table where elf ID is 102. So basically what the select statement does is it returns all the ornaments created by elf with the ID 102. But this time around, it's not going to list all the columns because we've specifically selected the columns that we want to get information from. And in this case, it's going to retrieve data from ID, color, and categories. So let's scroll down to see what else we can do. We can also insert data into this table. So for example, insert into table ornament, where this particular section here are all the columns that we have, and this section here are all the values that we are imputing into these columns that we have. So for example, the 5 value here will be inserted into the ornament ID, the 105 will be inserted into F ID, blue will be inserted into color continuously until we get to the end of the table. Now, another aspect we should also be familiar with is the PHP language. PHP is a server-side scripting language, meaning the code is executed on the web server before the final HTML is sent to the user's browser. Unlike client-side technology like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, PHP allows developers to perform various server-side tasks such as connecting to a wide range of databases. And we're going to be seeing how that is being implemented shortly. For example, here we have a very simple code that illustrates this. And what this is basically doing is we're creating a variable and we're issuing an SQL query here, which is going to select everything from the table ornament where color equals to green. Then we're going to create a result variable, which we're going to store our information in. And the result equals to SQL server query, which is actually a function that takes in the connect variable and the query, which we have declared above here in order to make connection to the database. That is basically what it is doing. And sometimes we might not have our value hard coded into the program. So we can easily collect this data dynamically from users. And that is what this other section is talking about. So for example, we have the PHP super global variable get, which is actually retrieving the color parameters and saving the information within the color. So in this case, you don't have to specify what the value of the color parameter is going to be. Then as usual, we are declaring a query we are selecting everything from table ornament where color is equals to whatever information or value has been saved inside the color parameters. And lastly, we're going to create a result. We're going to use the SQL Server query function to connect with the database, sending the connection and query as our parameter for the program here. And this is what has been easily illustrated on what we have here. And this is a simple URL to just give an example. And the endpoint is ornament-search.php. The parameter is color, and the value we are giving that we want to query from the database is green. And this is going to be how the backend code is going to be. This is the PHP and this is the SQL query. So let's move ahead. I'm trying to move a little bit more faster so that this video can be short. What else can we do? The next thing we're going to learn about is SQL injection. So since we are talking about SQL, we are supposed to understand the vulnerability that is associated with SQL. SQL injection is an attack technique that exploits how web application handle user input. Like in our case, the parameters, which is collecting the colors, particularly in SQL query. Instead of providing legitimate input like the ornament color we've seen above, the attacker injects a malicious SQL statement into the web application input field or parameter. The application database server then executes this rogue SQL query, which can make the application behave in an unintended format. And we're going to be seeing how this is going to be done. Now, there's another aspect that we also need to understand, and which is retrieving data from a database using an SQLite payload 1 equals to 1, which is actually a true statement. So let's take this illustration here. We have a situation where we are selecting everything from the table ornament where color is equals to an empty string or 1 is equals to 1. Then we have our comment section here. Now, when we search for an empty string, the condition might be true because we might not have any data with an empty string within the database. Then when we use the OR logical operator, which is going to check two conditions, two statements, and check if one is correct. If one of the two conditions that we are comparing is true, then the query will always execute. So that is basically why we have the OR in our payload. So if we're executing select, let me go over that again. If you're executing select everything from table ornament where color is nothing or 1 equals to 1, which is true. So definitely this payload is going to be executed on the server. So let's see what this means. So the reason why we're having this comment here is to comment out any other section of the code. When the SQL query is executing, whenever it comes across this comment indicator here, is going to just leave out every other part of the query that we have. Now let's see what next we can do. Now, when you are using the OR 1 equals to 1, you need to be very cautious because this particular payload is typically used to bypass authentication or return all items in a table. However, the risks lie in that you might not be aware of the context and scope of the query you are injecting into. Additionally, application may use values from an initial request in a multiple SQL queries. SQL injection payload that return all rows can lead to an unintended consequences when injected into different types of statements. So we need to put that into consideration when we are injecting our payload. Now we also have another concept called start query. A start query is used to enable attacker to terminate the original intended query and execute an additional SQL statement. And we're going to be seeing how this is going to be done very soon. Now, before we get our hands dirty, let's take a look at the questions that we have for this task so that we can continue solving the question while we solve the task. So the first question says, manually navigate the defaced website to find the vulnerable search form. What is the first web page you come across that contains the gift finding feature? So let's move ahead to attack box, and I'm going to fire up my Mozilla Firefox. What I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the display to 120. The next thing we're going to do is to grab our IP address. Then let's head to our tag box. Then we're going to paste it in here. And let's see what we have. So interestingly, let me just make this, can it go a little bit bigger? All right, cool. So interestingly, we have our defaced website, and it's actually funny, the write-up that we have here. For example, we have, welcome to Santa Workshop. Our mischievous elves are hard at work, assembling Christmas toy and preparing for the most boring season of the year. Now, this look odd. So that is basically because the attacker has actually defaced the web application. And our job here is to find the attack vector. Then we should be able to restore the web application back to its normal form. So as the question suggests, we are going to look for the first gift search endpoint. So we're going to click on the start my gift search. And when we do this, this is going to take us to a new page, which is the giftsearch.php. So let's grab that. I'm going to copy and let's head to the TryAcme, and I'm going to paste this in here and I'm going to submit. So that was correct. Analyze the SQL error message that is returned. What ODB driver is being used in the back end of the website? Let's go back to the web application. In order to get the error message, we need to first of all break the application. But first, let's just interact with this application as a normal user. The application is taking in some parameters. For example, it's taking in the child value, teenager value, adult value, senior value inside the age parameter. And then we are also expected to select the interest parameter and the budget. So let's just quickly fill that. I'm going to select child, I'm going to select toy here, and we're going to select $50 as our budget. And let's run this and see what we get. Now this query is going to go into the database to fetch all the results that matches our specified parameter, which are the child, the interest, the child, the toys, and the $50 values that we imputed into the parameters. And you can see the list of all the results that we have here. So what we can do next is we can come into the age parameter here, and just in front of the child value here, we can break this application by supplying a single quote. And when we put the single quote and we run the web application, let's see what we get. We get an error message. This is a simple proof that this application might be vulnerable to an SQL injection. And this error message happens to be displaying some really great information about the SQL server. Now, the first thing it does is it is able to reveal that we are working with a Microsoft ODB driver 17, which is the version 17 for SQL Server, which is a very, very interesting information to begin with. We are also able to identify what causes the error, which is incorrect syntax near the child, which is actually what we injected into the child. And lastly, we're able to see another error message here, which is on close quotation mark after character strings. It is expecting a close quotation mark because we open a certain quotation mark here, and since it's not able to find it, it decided to display an error message. So we can quickly pick our error message here and go to the TryAcme and just fill that in here, and let's see if that is correct. All right, so that is correct. The next part says inject the 1 equals to 1 condition into the gift search form. What is the last result returned in the database? And let's see how we can do this. Let's go to our attack box. Now, instead of injecting just the single quote to break the application, let's try to use the or 1 equals to 1 payload in order to dump all the information or all the gift search result that we have in the database. So what we can do is to use the quote or, then we can specify 1 equals to 1. Then we can comment out other parts of the query. So let's go ahead and run this and see if we get all the results. When you scroll down, You can see that we have more results than what we have initially. And this is the list of all the gift search results. You can see the question now says, what is the last result returned in the database? We're going to scroll to the extreme end to fetch our flag there. Okay, cool. So let's quickly pick our flag. I'm going to copy, and we're going to paste it in here and submit. The next question says, what flag is in the node file grid star left behind on the system? So in order to get this file, we need to have a remote code execution access to the web application itself. And let's see how this can be done. Let's quickly scroll up to the task. Okay, so we've actually injected the 1 equals to 1. In order to make the remote code execution possible, we're going to be calling the stored procedure, which is the XP-CMD shell, which is also referred to an extended stored procedure. And let's see what this is actually. So the XP-CMD shell is a system extended stored procedure in Microsoft SQL Server that enable the execution of operating system command and programs from within the SQL Server. It provides a mechanism for SQL Server to interact directly with the host operating system command shell. While it can be a powerful administrative tool, it can also be a security risk if not used cautiously. And that is what we are going to be using to gain access to this remote machine or to this remote web application. Now you might be wondering, okay, we said XP CMD shell is an extended stored procedure. So what is a stored procedure? A stored procedure is a precompiled collection of one or more SQL statements or commands that are stored under a name and can be explicitly executed by a database management system. The stored procedure enhances performance, provide a level of abstraction, and support parameterized execution. So let's see how we can actually leverage on the XP CMD shell stored procedures. Now, in order to use this particular stored procedure, using the exec command, we need to configure the show advanced option to 1, which is going to enable the show advanced option. Then we can issue the reconfigure command, which is actually going to make sure that these settings has been properly done. Then we are going to configure the XPCMD shell itself by enabling it using the 1 value. And finally, we're going to confirm that this particular procedure has been changed. So let's see how we can do that. This is a very simple payload. So for example, here we're breaking the query, then we are terminating using the stack queries. Instead of executing the original query that we have on the web application, we want to add our own query to the stack, and the query is going to be to enable the show advanced option and the XPCMD shell. So let's quickly grab that and append it to our web application. So let's copy this and go in here. So I'm going to dump that here, and let's make sure everything is working fine. So let's send this and see what we get. So it looks as if nothing has happened, but we'll need to confirm this by running the SP command shell to execute a particular command on the server to verify. So let's move back and see what else we can do. Now that we've successfully enabled the XP CMD shell, let's see how we can get a payload into the web application using the XP CMD shell. And the first thing we need to do is to create our payload first, and we're going to be using the Metasploit MSF Venom to create this payload. So first of all, we want to specify the payload. We want to specify our own local IP address, the port we are going to be connecting with, the type of file we need to create as our payload, and the name of the file. Let's quickly copy this command, and we're going to add to our target machine, or our attack box rather. Let's fire up a new terminal for this, and let's make it bigger. First of all, I need to verify what my IP address is, so I will use the IP-A or IPA rather, and this is going to give me the tun0 IP address, and I'm going to grab this. But first of all, let's paste our payload in here. Then we can copy the IP address and then replace it with the local host. Let's quickly paste that. Now the name of our payload is going to be reverse.exe, and I'm going to send that. This is going to take about a minute for this payload to be successfully generated. So while that is coming up, we need to look for a way to be able to serve this application from our own local machine to the remote web application. And we're going to be using the Python HTTP server to do this on port 8000. So I'm going to grab the command and let's head to our machine. So this is still coming up. I can just open a new terminal here and make sure that I'm going to have the payload on the home directory. Okay, it's still coming up. Let's just give it some time to finish generating the payload. This is actually taking a while. We have our payload generated as reverse.exe and it has been saved to our current working directory. So let's verify this. So we have the reverse.exe file generated. So let's serve our file using the Python HTTP server. We're going to run this command here. And you can see that now we are serving on any IP address on port 8000. So we can confirm here that our file has been uploaded to our remote web application after we've performed the action. So let's go back to, sorry about that. Let's go back to TryAcme. And the next action is to use the stack query to execute the xpcmd shell using the search util to upload the payload into the web application. Then we're going to specify the IP address of our local machine on the port that we're serving it with. And we're going to specify the name of the application, then the location we want to put our payload on the remote machine. So let's quickly do that. I'm going to grab the payload. Let's start from here. Copy, and let's head to our web application. I'm going to copy the entire code up until this age parameter. I'm going to paste in our new payload. Then we need to go into our terminal. Let's just grab our IP once more because we need it as our local host. So let's grab this, copy, and let's head to the browser and replace your IP address here with our original IP address. I'm going to paste and let's execute this command. Now we need to confirm that this file has actually been uploaded. So if you go to where we are serving the file from, you can see that we have the 200 status code indicating that this file have successfully been uploaded to the web application. Now what next is to execute this payload. And to do that, what we are going to do, first of all, is to create a listener on the port. Remember on our payload, we set, let's go there and check it out. If you remember on the payload, we set our port to be 444. Let's go back. Where's the command we ran? Let's see, where do we have it? Okay, cool. We set the local port to 4444. So we need to create our listening port using netcat on the same port 4444. Let's clear this. And I'm going to use, can we make this also a little bit bigger? So we can say netcat listing verbose port 4444. And I'm going to run this. So now we are listening on port 4444. Now to confirm this, let's go ahead and execute our payload. And to do that, we're just going to copy this. Remember, we are using the xpcmd stored procedure and we're executing the file in the directory we saved the file to. Let's quickly grab the link. I'm going to copy and let's head to our browser and we're going to execute. paste it in here, and we're going to run. So let's confirm if we actually got a shell. So I'm going to head back to my terminal, and you can see that now we have a shell. So if I say who am I, it says we are NT service / SQL Express. Now this SQL Express is a built-in account that is used to run SQL Server service for SQL Server Express edition. This account is created automatically during the installation of SQL Server Express, and it is a virtual account that provides the necessary permission for the SQL Server service to interact with the operating system and access resources. But let's try to see if this account have some certain access to users profile. So I can use the, beg your pardon, this is not Linux. So let's use the dir. So these are all the system32 files. Let's quickly go back to the root directory. Dir, what do we have? We have the users directory in here. See the users. Okay, so what do we have? We have the administrator and public directory. So let's go to the administrator directory and dir. We have some files or some folders like the contact, desktop, document. Let's check out the desktop directory. And what do we have? So we have some directory and some files. For example, we have a directory called one. We have another directory called backup. We have a file called deface_website.bat. So I'm curious of this file. So let's try to see the content. So I can say type deface_website.bat. And this is going to display the content of the deface_website.bat file. And this is actually the code the attacker used to deface the web application. So for now, let's take a look at the note, because if you scroll down to the task question, it says what flag is in the node file grid star left behind on the system. So let's see what is contained in that. I'm going to use the type note. Is it note? Okay, note.txt. All right, so we have our note here, and it says, hey, Aka 0192, I received your Bitcoin payment. Thanks again for the speedy transaction. So this is a communication between Aka 0192 and Gristar, and it says, I received your Bitcoin payment. Thanks again for a speedy transaction. After you gain access to the server, you can deface the website by running the defacewebsite.bat, which we've seen earlier. The script is in the c/user/administrator/desktop. Feel free to dump the database and steal whatever you want. If you need to revert the changes back to the original site for any reason, just run the restore_website.bat. Okay, so this now explains the second file that we have on the administrator desktop from the same directory. Also, I shouldn't need to mention this, but please delete this note.txt file after defacing the website. Do not let the hack tie back to me, grid star. So basically, there's an instruction here left for Aka0192 to delete this particular note that we're actually displaying now in order not to tie the hack back to grid star. But unfortunately, this particular user did not delete the file. So let's quickly grab our flag and let's head back to TryAcme. We're going to paste the flag in here and we're going to submit, and that was correct. And lastly, what is the flag you receive on the home page after restoring the web application? So let's quickly restore back our web application. I'm going to dir again, and this is the file that we're going to use to restore the web application. We're going to run restore_website.bat. And as you can see, removing all files and folder from the c/inetpub/www root. Website restoration completed. Please refresh the home page. So if you are curious enough, you could check this directory and see the files that makes up the web application. I'm going to do that, but after I got our last flag. So let's go to the web application and go to the /index.php. Let's create a new. So on the new tab, we're going to first of all grab the IP. Then we're going to use the /index.php. And as you can see, we have successfully restored back the web application. And let's grab our last flag. I'm going to copy. And then let's paste it on try at me. I'm going to paste. Okay, cool. If you're enjoying this task, feel free to check out the software security module. I'm going to click on completed. And we have successfully completed the task for this room. If you are curious enough to take a look at the source code of the web application, we can head to our attack machine, go back to the shell we gained, and then we can change directory to the inet pub, copy cd. I'm going to paste, and let's see what we have in this directory. So we have the www root. Let's go into that. Okay, cool. What else do we have? And you can see that this is all the files that make up the web application. Then we have the, for example, the index.php, we have the gift search.php, we have the gift result.php, we have the font directories, the favicon.png, the favicon.ico, and we have our css directory. So guys, that will be all in this video. Please make sure you like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you in the next video.